Welcome on inside yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast, powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we talk to the experts to get their advice and thoughts on the ever-changing digital social marketing landscape. This show is no different. We're talking to Tom Weingart. He's the head of social over Overtime. They actually have a basketball league in Atlanta. Really excited to talk to Tom. I actually met him, KG, out in New York a couple months ago when Snapchat was kind enough to invite me to just a cocktail reception with a lot of sports leaders. And him and I ended up chatting for like 45 minutes about the industry, all the growth over at Overtime. I think they've gone from like 5 employees to over 200 in the last 6 years or so, 1.5 billion views a month, 55 million followers across 7 platforms, 88% of their audience is under 35. So regardless if you work in sports or entertainment or Fortune 5 or CPG, everybody I hear that we get on calls with KG on the sales side and on the partner side, they want to get younger. They want to attract Gen Z. So I can't wait to really dig in deep with him. It's like, what is working with Gen Z right now? What's working on TikTok to attract that younger audience? So going to get into that with him and much, much more. Super excited to introduce you to the head of social over at Overtime, Tom Weingart.
What's up, man? Thank you guys for having me. This is awesome.
Of course. It was a pleasure to meet you out there in New York at that Snapchat cocktail reception. I know we've had a few conversations since then, so I'm excited to dig in and provide some value for the listeners. But if you don't mind, here at the top, can you just give us a quick rundown of all that you oversee at Overtime and kind of how your team looks like currently?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been at Overtime since day one. We've been around for about 6 years now. It went from about like 5 or 6 of us to now the whole entire Overtime ecosystem. We have about 250 people on the team. And so my main job is overseeing social. Our social team has about, give or take anywhere between 15 and 20 people on the squad. I think the cool thing about Overtime is everyone impacts the social, whether you're on the sales team, whether you're on the lifestyle team, whether you're in the business squad. So I say 15 to 20 very loosely because you could say all 250. And it's mostly on the social side. And since I've been there for so long, just trying to figure out how do we maintain what Overtime started with and that brand and what the core is, and how do we continue that, but then keep on elevating it and keep on adding new things also. Evolving.
We have a similar trajectory. We were probably around 5-10 about 6 years ago, and now we're over or at 100 employees here at STN. But we'd love to hear from you. Maybe we can share a laugh or a cry together. What's the one thing that's been most surprising that you never could have guessed 6 years ago? And then maybe a challenge that just with crazy growth like that you guys have faced.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's all mind-blowing me. I was a college kid. I was finishing my sophomore year of college when I started at Overtime. We had a different name at the time. We called our company was called Tally. And I just took it thinking I'd be there for my 2-month internship.
Right.
Kind of check the box. So it's all shocking to me that I've been somewhere for this long, that I've made my best friends literally work there. But no, I think for me, it's having an impact on younger sports fans. I knew we wanted to do that. I knew we wanted to make sports cool for younger fans and figure out what they liked, but I didn't think that we could have the impact that we did. Or I didn't know. I just didn't know what that would look like. But to have fans want to wear our apparel, want to engage with us, want to DM and talk about things in their personal life, not just things on the surface. I think that's probably been the thing that I never really knew that we could do that.
If you can go back 6 years ago today and talk to yourself, in those first few months, what's the advice you give yourself? You're launch a TikTok a little bit earlier. No.
That's such a good question. I don't know. Here's the main thing. We went so hard in the beginning, 24/7, every little thing. I think a lot of people would probably go back and be don't get so worked up over the little things. I actually would get more worked up over the little things. Every small detail made us who we were. 6 years ago, I would say to enjoy it more. I think I was so obsessed with trying to get to the next thing. How do we get more followers? How do we hire the next person? That I don't think I got to always take in wow, we're doing something really cool and shaking up sports and shaking up social media. So I think I would just enjoy it more. That's the only thing. And I get to enjoy it now.
I mean, from 5 to 250, you're much closer to an entrepreneur than you are a normal employee. That's why I asked. There's so much growing and you're building something from scratch and systems and processes and QA process, all those things, partnerships. I'm sure it's been a great, crazy ride. 55 million plus over 7 platforms. This is from your website. I'm sure it's probably even higher now with 1.5 billion views a month, all that stuff. So you guys have really just like cornered this market, kind of first movers in that. How have you been able to, I guess, corner the market and then continue to establish that presence as like the main mover and shaker in this lane?
Yeah. Thank you, first of all. And
Yep.
hearing those numbers is always fun. I think on social, I was really lucky personally. And as a company, we were really lucky that our two founders and like the core people who are making decisions around our company, they didn't go tell us, hey, we got to go make money. We got to go do this. It was just like, yo, make something as cool and as big as humanly possible. Right. And that allows you to just have like endless possibilities. And then like your creativity can just go wild. And like, I think that has been the main thing for us. And now as we've gotten bigger, right, there's more things that come into play and we have to keep like trying new stuff. But I think it was just like a lot of creative people in a room coming up with new ideas and not being afraid to try it. And I think all of those factors kind of have allowed us to keep building off of it. I think the other thing that I've thought a lot about over the last few months as we've gotten bigger is Overtime's changed a ton over the 6 years, right? Like a lot of things have happened, but I feel like our core thing has always been the same since day one. And that was that we wanted to make something for younger sports fans to like love and be attached to. And like that makes things really easy when you're thinking about what content should I make? What post should I make? What should the caption be? Because all I have to think about is like, hey, would this 16 to 28-year-old, would they like what I'm putting out?
Right.
And that makes it a lot easier. I don't think about like trying to satisfy this person or please that person. Like knowing your audience super, super well kind of makes everything a lot easier. So I think having a very focused, target, and obviously things bounce around, but it allows us to kind of dive in on a lot of different things and always make it about like what the Overtime fan wants to see.
Yeah. I mean, algorithms change obviously more than you and I would like. Platforms pop up. What would you say that 16 to 28 demo? I mean, everybody's really trying to get better, attracting Gen Z, getting younger as a brand. As you sit here today, like what is the type of content that's resonating? What's the stuff that you guys see that just really gets that community riled up?
Yeah, I think it's always changing, like you said. I think a lot changed during COVID and with TikTok specifically. I think what I see our audience be the most attached to is just something they've never seen before, right? Like they appreciate creativity. I said it the other day, like being weird is cool again. I don't know when that flip happened, but I think weird stuff and things are just a little out there and that's always cool. But my biggest thing on content is when you can mix content with community, like that is like your most powerful thing. So like when we can engage our fans into our content now as like everything starts to open up more, like how can we go shoot content with our fans? How do we like throw a block party? How do we go to a basketball game and get all the fans in one place? How do we do all these, we visit a high school and take over the school for a day. Like, how do we do more of those things? I think that stuff, there's so much content, there's so many accounts. So what is going to make, especially like someone in Gen Z, what's going to make them attached to you? It's not going to be the content necessarily, because like they're going to get cool. A lot of people make cool content. How do you make them feel attached to you through doing something different, right? Like whether it's just even communicating with them, hearing them, listening to them, making them a part of it. I think that's where I would keep wanting to go more and more into.
I don't want to say that it gets a bad rap, but there's something where I don't think enough people respect the aggregation of content. And we've seen this throughout media, right? Whether it's your local news aggregating all the news stories from that day, whether it's Sports Center aggregating all the top highlights, where you and I can sit down in high school and college and just consume the top of the top. Overtime, obviously from a UGC standpoint, like it's bread and butter from the beginning. And even to this day, it's really saying, hey, as long as you follow us, we're that one-stop shop to, make you laugh, entertain you, find things across the web that you may not have access to. Talk me through, I guess, just how you guys started to kind of build that community and be authentic through the aggregation, and kind of how that is to this day kind of part of your brand.
Yeah, it's continued to change over the course of time. Like, 6 years ago, we realized like we wanted to have some of our own content, right? And what that meant for us is we went and filmed high school basketball games. So we would, and that was actually happening. Like a lot of companies actually were doing that. The difference is all of those companies were filming them on huge video cameras, and they were coming out like 72 hours after. We showed up and just were like, hey, we have a cell phone. Like, let's figure it out from there. And we filmed all these different basketball games on our phones. The clips would be on Instagram before the players' games even ended. So they're walking off the court. You're like, whoa, look at my dunk. Like, that's sick. Resharing it. Their friends see it, reshare it. So it really started like that. Like, how can we get to as many different basketball gyms as possible? We created this amazing like ambassador program where college students all across the country were filming games and submitting clips. And that allowed us to, we were a tiny company in New York City. That allowed us to cover Zion Williamson down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. It allowed us to cover LaMelo Ball out in California. We had all of the footage for these star high school athletes in one place coming out really fast. And we were kind of like, that's how we started. It was like, wow, Overtime has everyone. Like, they're not just covering 2 or 3 kids. They're not just covering the West Coast. They're not putting the clips out 72 hours later. They're doing it all at once, and it's fire.
And that's the key, right? With all social is like anybody can be an aggregator of high school basketball or football, what have you. But like that exclusivity, why do I have to follow you? And it seems like you guys understood early on, like we got to find ways to get content nobody else can get. So you have to be with us in order to get this content.
Yeah, and that's how we grew. Like, we were small. So at first it was the players would reshare our clips and they were bigger than us. Then we got to like 100,000 followers. Okay, now we're bigger than most of our players. And that's when like House of Highlights and ESPN, a Sports Center, like start reposting all of our stuff.
Because nobody else has that Zion highlight. Nobody else is there, right?
Right. And like they could go find it from a million different people and piece it together, but we could give it all at once. Like, hey, here's LaMelo's best 5 clips. Here's Zion's best 10 clips. Here's Trae Young's best 5 clips. And you own
it. You don't have to worry about cease and desist. Like, guys, do it. Feel free to reshare, help our brand grow. Yeah.
So that's how it started. And that's how we really grew in the beginning. And then we did that with other sports. We went to football, we went to soccer. We did a lot more women's sports. And we continue to grow it that way. And so we did that. And then, we really only shared our own clips probably the first couple of years. And then we started to realize, hey, like we can also, there's a cool clip on Twitter that we found. There's a cool clip on Instagram. And our whole thing was like, we got to, like, it's the same mindset. We have to be first. We have to be the best at it. So like, just finding those viral clips first and sharing them around, and people start to send those around, again, it started to create like this buzz. At first it was like, that's the high school basketball place. Then you keep elevating. It's like, oh wow, that they have all the best basketball content, period. And then we did more football stuff and we kept growing it and growing it. And then people started sending us a million things. So that was great and easy and a lot of highlights. And then and then you see like the TikTok side kind of start to come into play over the last couple of years, and we can find even more different things. And it's even easier to kind of aggregate all that type of stuff. And that's been amazing. And now we're kind of back to like, hey, we have amazing UGC that people submit us and that we find. But then how do we keep making sure we have the balance of our own content too? The basketball highlights are still a big part of it, but how do we kind of elevate that? And that's why we've been making more original content with like our internal talent and stuff.
And I think no different than Netflix, right? They used to be the one-stop shop where they had rights to all the different networks and production studios, and they were kind of that aggregator of all the best content. And then they started spending $8 billion a year on original content, but they built that original base of, hey, come to us, we're going to entertain you. And then as they kind of lost rights, they still had the Ozarks and the House of Cards and all that stuff to kind of keep you going, which is awesome.
I want to get through Ozark. The last 3 episodes.
Oh yeah, no, I still got the last season I got to watch. So
I got the last 3 episodes. I can't get through it.
So you're not impressed with the last season?
No, and I loved it up until then, but I just like I need to do it. I need to just bang it out, but we'll see.
I love Jason Bateman in every single role he plays. Like, everybody just cool the jets. Everybody just settle down. Like he's always settling people down. I want to get kind of granular with you. It's like a topic I just been fascinated with the last few weeks, honestly, is this idea of discoverability versus your followers. And we've seen it with TikTok where, a lot of folks have 600,000, 1 million followers, and their videos may get 212 views. Unless TikTok juices your video in a short amount of time, or they see the engagement really start to pick up, they're not going to put juice on it. And now with Instagram essentially copying TikTok almost like verbatim, it's really going to be much less about that vanity metric, which I'm sure you and I have been screaming from the rooftop for years now, and much more like, how do I get on that For You page? How do I get on that Explore page? So I know you guys have been knee deep in that stuff. Like, what have you seen from that, and how do you see like it shifting as we move forward?
Yeah, I think it's funny because like, I think at Overtime, we still always feel like the little guy in the sense, even though like we have a lot of followers. Like, I'm kind of like, hell yeah, like followers don't matter anymore. Like, I kind of love it, even though like, I don't know, I spent every single second for the last 5 years trying to build those. But I still am like super proud of like what that's become, that like anyone can blow up. And Do I think that it can be hard for a company specifically? Yeah, I think it's harder for a company than an individual because like you do one wrong thing, you post one branded piece of content, it can just spiral. But I love it. And I love that anyone can blow up, like I said, and it's allowed us to like, I think it's given people who actually love social, like an even like level playing field. Like I know a lot of people who work in social who like have blown up on TikTok, who like never planned on being like in front of the camera and doing that stuff. And to see people break free and be like, hey, like I have a skill and now I can use it to like make my own stuff and like not feel weird about it. And I don't have to be this amazing editor or this amazing filmer to do it. I like it a lot. And I think it's gonna be hard. Like, as you said, like having like that algorithm is even only getting harder and harder. And like you can make the best video ever and it just might not work. And that's really frustrating.
Well, from a business model standpoint, like, hey, let's build this community that's very rabid and they love our content and they're, you know, kind of ambassadors for the brand. And obviously a big part of that is how do we monetize that community? How do we monetize our audience for brand partners that really want to get that 16 to 28-year-old, right? What are your thoughts? I'm just curious, like as these algorithms change, right? And you have less control over, you know, your minimum views per piece of content type thing as discoverability kind of comes up. Is that just like a paid media arbitrage? Like how do you, from a partnership standpoint, ensure that they get the value even though these things are changing on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think we've been really lucky in that a lot of our brand partners do trust us. And like, you know, I think early on at Overtime, first few years, like we didn't do any branded stuff, which was, you know, I know is not a luxury that a lot of companies have, but we were lucky in that sense. And then when we did, it was like, hey, we're only going to do stuff that we would do without a brand. So we went and filmed with like Jalen Green, who was like a top 3 pick the other like a couple years ago. We would have done that, and I forget what brand came in with it, but we would have done that with or without the brand, right? So like in that way, it was easy to integrate it, and it's like, hey, we're already making content. Now, as we get more branded stuff and we do more things and algorithms change, again, we keep trying to preach like, hey, let us still make things for this platform. Like, so for instance, for TikTok, like we do a lot of different VO stuff. We try to use a lot of different trends. We try to use our internal talent to still feel like we're treating the platform correctly while also kind of giving value to the partner. But it's hard. It's really hard. Like I get it. I get why a brand pushes back and like wants their drink in there even more, wants their tagline in there. I do get it. It's just like a really hard balance, right? And then they want the caption a little bit longer. We want it shorter. You know, I get that. I guess as a publisher, you always want the brand to trust you and be like, hey, I can get you there. But I get the pushback sometimes.
What have you seen be most successful? Like if you're already going to shoot the Jalen Green highlight, is that a 2-second blip of the partner in the beginning, much like Bleacher has done for a few years? Like what amount have you seen where if the brand's like, hey, Tom, I trust you in the team, as long as we get some type of mention, we're cool. What's ideal and what works with your audience where it's not like too salesy or too over the top or the audience doesn't agree with it?
Yeah. One thing that we've started doing really heavily in the last year that I think will be the best thing for our brand partners is we have created like what we call micropods. So we're a little late to the podcast game.
Yeah.
Our audience doesn't really watch like 2-hour long shows. So instead of like going all in on that, we're like, hey, why don't we just make TikTok podcasts basically? Like, so we have I think it's like 18 different TikTok channels at this point that are just like little podcasts. So it's a 60-second segment. Who's better, Kyrie or Luka, whatever. And we'll go talk about it. And I found it way easier to integrate a brand into it because
so who's better brought to you by Mountain Dew and you kind of do the argument.
We can do that. We can talk about why like, you know, we can film it in a GMC truck and it's just like the location is that we can wear shirts. We can have a
product
background.
placement. I love
There's a lot of different things we can do. We can add something at the end. It can be in the caption. What I found is we can have 20 different episodes and they have 20 different types of brand placement. And I think the creativity there has been cool and it feels native to the platforms also.
I love that. All right. So let's talk original content. You know, especially from an Instagram, TikTok standpoint. I know you just spoke to a piece of original content, whether it be kind of that debate stuff, but what have you seen really take off for you from an original content standpoint? Obviously, you guys started off with just like making the investment to show up at these high school games and things like that. But what really has surprised you as of late?
Yeah. I think like starting with the filming highlights, it still works if there's something crazy, but most of our fans have seen most of it already, right? So like we always have to add something on top of it. So we do a lot of different stuff. Like on the straight basketball side, we might have someone tell the story of a game now, right? So like we'll have one of our talent come on screen and be like, this is Bronny James just won in front of his dad. And like, we tell the whole story that, he scored 32 points and Carmelo was there in the crowd. And like instead of just throwing that highlight, now we give you like some story into it. So
and the algorithm is really, I think, pushing that right now too, is that quick storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah. Starting with an amazing hook in the first 3 seconds, then continuing that story and finishing with something great. That's really worked for us. Like I said, the micropods have been incredible. We have kind of one for each segment. So like one is like more pop culture. One is more, football. Like one was more college football. I'm on one where we go to like a local high school and we debate kids in like sports topics. Like we'll just like debate a student at the cafeteria. Like, so changing them up and having different ones, like that's been really great. Utilizing TikTok specifically, like the different things that they have on there. So like using a green screen and like one of our guys, one of our guys he'll like rate movies or rate outfits from like NBA players when they walk into the arena. So honestly, there's a lot of different ways that we can do. And then the last piece is we make a lot of premium content that go on our YouTube, so more long form content. And we used to just take like little segments and put them on Instagram and TikTok, or we might, put out like a minute long, like the best compilation and what we've been able to do lately is insert kind of our internal talent to, again, go back to the basketball thing, like tell the story of the episode in 45 seconds. So like now we're producing like documentary style content in 45 seconds or less with like a voiceover attached to it. It's kind of like a movie trailer, but it's a little bit different than we've ever had to do it. And that's been good too. So yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of different things that you can do with the talent. I think it's finding, as much as it is like us coming up with ideas, a lot of it's utilizing, people who understand the platform and understand what's going to work well. I
hope you all have your notebooks out, because Tom is dropping some knowledge for you, some tangible advice you can use literally tomorrow with what's working right now, which is awesome. Have you seen, this is anecdotal for me, Tom, but I've noticed I'll see like a funny movie clip that I like on TikTok. I find myself exiting the app and going to YouTube and watching the full clip or watching like 8 more clips. You kind of have that golden snake approach, right? But
yes,
for you guys, when you do that kind of movie trailer 45-second wrap up, do you see a lift on YouTube of folks like exiting the app? Does it need a CTA or does it kind of happen naturally? Just curious what you guys are seeing.
Honestly, it depends. I think there's one show that we really saw success with. I don't know if anyone's a Euphoria fan, but Ashtray from Euphoria, his name's Wanda Wall, and he was like the young star character. I won't give away the ending to the last episode. But we went and did like a day in the life with him. So we actually spent 2 days with him and did a bunch of different things. He is a personality that is like a star on TikTok. Like it's perfect for that audience. And then we kind of broke down his show into like, hey, here's 5 parts on TikTok. And we mostly are just putting out like 1 part for a lot of our shows. But for this one, it was like, hey, we have one of our biggest stars. We have a really cool story. Let's kind of like string it out. And that one we saw the most, kind of drive from that, I think. Like having 5 parts, giving most of it away, but still not putting it all together into one TikTok video made people like want to go. And we were able to throw that on Instagram and different things too. So I think it depends on what you're putting out. But look, I don't click out of Instagram or TikTok to go watch something else. Usually I get your instance. I think I would do that too. But for the most part, it's hard to be like, hey, link in bio.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And I think TikTok, honestly, they'll never admit this, but they're killing that algorithm if you put too much of that stuff in the copy as well. So you kind of have to be careful on what you're saying in that.
Well, I do think TikTok would like to be more similar to YouTube long term. I think they want their longer.
More time spent on app. So
yeah.
So one interesting thing too, I don't think enough brands utilize their ecosystem enough and try to find ways that maybe a lot of their different handles or brands can interact with each other in a fun way. I always bring the example up when Disney Plus launched. They used all their handles like Marvel and Toy Story, all those different things, and kind of created a moment or a digital stunt. I know you guys have Overtime FC, the gaming channel, Overtime Season. Has there been anything over your 6 years that you've been able to kind of use the entire portfolio in a creative way to kind of be able to have that max followers get the word out about something?
That's a good question.
Or maybe two handles kind of interact or cross.
Definitely with a few, right? So like I view the overtime handle as like you can really put anything on there, and like we've done that by design. Like we can post football content, we can post soccer, we can do all of that. So like whenever we hosted a football event a couple months ago, like we were able to really push that from the overtime handle as well as the two football handles. It doesn't work as much to push that football event from the gaming channel. With our apparel, certainly, like it's definitely a push from all of the accounts at once. Because if you're an overtime fan in any capacity, like here's a dope shirt, and like you can relate to that, whether you like it because of gaming or you like it because of soccer or whatever. But no, I think that's actually a really interesting thing. I think we can do a better job of kind of figuring out a way. Like one thing that I haven't unlocked, and if anyone listening has an idea, please hit me up, is like we've gotten each other to promote the other accounts to get followers, but like I want to have almost like a scavenger hunt amongst all of our different accounts. And how do you get someone to like, maybe they win a freaking car, but like they did something through all of our accounts and like they found a web where it wasn't corny and it wasn't like a giveaway that was kind of like stupid, but it was fun. It was more for like engagement in the community side.
We've done that a little bit with some of our clients. We've done like a choose your own adventure. By the way, be careful about using choose your own adventure because that's a trademark term and you can't say that technically. But yeah, it's a scavenger hunt to go to different feeds and kind of takes you to a place where the first person to kind of get the hint wins. But that's very interesting. I wanted to ask you, well, actually, let's dive into this. When we first met at that Snapchat event, we were just kind of chatting. I was really just fascinated with this idea of you guys are now creating your own leagues, your own high school leagues. I know there's 7-on-7 in Vegas, I believe. I think you said basketball in Atlanta. But talk about original content. I mean, you're actually creating leagues and sports so that way you own all the content. You can have your cameramen, and it just is that content factory. So just talk us through when that idea was launched and just like how you guys are approaching it.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of layers that went into it. So yeah, our main thing is we started our own high school we started our own professional basketball league down in Atlanta that features high school aged athletes from across the world. And we started that about a year ago now. We wrapped up season. We're going into season 2, and it's been amazing. That's our main thing. And then we've started a football league we kind of teased in year 1 a couple months ago, and now it will pick up even on a bigger scale next year. But anyways, talking specifically about the basketball side, I think overtime had gotten to a really big place as far as followers go, and as far as the different media things that we were making. And we realized like we need more things that we can own, right? So like in that case, it was like IP. And what made the most sense for us? It was a basketball league, and the reason for that I think is we worked with so many athletes. Like I can't tell you how like countless amazing top of the line athletes. And they always had 3 things that I think were really apparent. Like one, they weren't getting the training that could get them ready for like the next level. Number 2 is I think the education system for them was a little hit or miss. Like they're like, hey, we want to be basketball players. And like, I love learning the normal stuff, but I need a little bit more to prepare me for that next chapter of my life. And I think the third thing is like, they're huge athletes with a ton of followers. They want to get paid. And this is before NIL had started. Right. So for us, it was like, okay, let's create a league for these high school aged athletes, make them professional athletes in some ways, and they can get top of the line like coaching and training. So we built a whole entire facility down in Atlanta.
And are they still playing in their high school like public leagues, or they're completely going over? Okay.
No, so a player decides to leave their high school and come to overtime league down in Atlanta. And we have a huge facility there with classrooms, with 3 different courts, like an amazing show court, incredible. Like we've had Trae Young, Anthony Edwards, Colin Sexton, all these NBA players come and be like, whoa, this is like NBA style facility.
And from an education standpoint, are they still getting that at their local school but they're playing basketball with you guys, or you guys?
Nope. So we have our own education system as well. That's awesome. And the education side is, yes, do they still get their core classes so they can graduate high school and get credits towards college? Yes. But also, how do we teach them financial literacy? How do we how do we put you in places where when you meet an agent, when you have to go and sign a different contract, like understanding what you're doing, and they're getting that at 16, 17, 18 years old instead of having to learn it when they're 21 in their first year in the NBA or first year playing professionally somewhere else. So they get the education side. Like I said, they get the state of the art, like practice and play and training from like our head coach is Kevin Ollie, who played in the NBA for 10 plus years, coached at UConn, and his whole staff is on that same level. And then the pay side. So our players have the option to become professional and get paid by us. They don't have to. They can reject that and just come and play basketball and get the education and maintain their college eligibility and be a scholarship player at Overtime Elite. So there's different paths now, but yeah, the whole point is just give like young athletes a greater path to kind of want to keep. We're all about like athlete empowerment. How do we get them in the best place to be able to get to the next level?
And from a business model perspective, obviously you're going to be able to shoot all those and own all that IP. But I'm sure, you have the jerseys, you have the actual arena, those things can be sponsored and all those different things. So I guess when this initial idea was launched, like where was the biggest opportunity? Because you got to monetize that to be able to obviously, pay the athletes and things like that. So what have you guys seen most success with so far?
Yeah. So I think like that's obviously a big part to this is I think there's a lot of ways to monetize it. As you said, we own everything in it. It's IP. So, I think in year one, like, there's different partners that come in and they sponsor a piece of the arena or they sponsor a piece of content that's coming out. But long-term, do I think media rights is like a huge thing also? Like, does someone want to stream, 20 of our games or 40 of our games on a platform or on television? I think that, you see these different deals like that. And for us to own this and now potentially own a football league and potentially go into other sports, it makes us like really attractive that way for a big partner to come in.
I'm curious about NIL, especially in California. High school athletes kind of have that same ability, I believe, to capitalize on their name. You look at Mikey Williams, obviously in San Diego. Have you guys ever thought about, have you ever done this, or does it ever make sense to buy the rights to, I guess, the content or the workouts, or being able to just have Overtime be the exclusive home for said athlete who's currently in his junior or senior year?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think the cool part is that we're more focused on now is like, for instance, Mikey Williams, he's not an athlete at Overtime Elite, but we bring in other schools to play against our Overtime Elite teams. We have 3 teams. So like last year, Mikey's team came and played against our team 2 or 3 times. So we were able to get him and his program into the mix and get playing against, our players and still get content with him. And we do that with a lot of other athletes. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe long term, right? Like, ESPN has started to do some of that, specifically with like Bronny's games. Actually, I think a couple of Mikey's games were on like ESPN2 last year. So it's definitely possible. I think in the short term, we're more focused on our own teams and the things that we can control. But I don't think it's impossible. Nothing's impossible.
One thing I asked you, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about it as we're talking, is high school's weird, right? Like high schools all across the country are, from a logistical standpoint, some are really well, some are just like put together with Scotch tape. And I was asking you, like, is there ever an ability to, like, there's a Citrus Belt League out here in Southern California, for instance, could you buy the rights to all the games and, again, be the exclusive home? But you were telling me that high school is kind of a weird beast when it comes to all that because it's so different across the country.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, it really is the wild, wild west out there. And, like, it's not that we don't understand and don't want to get involved in. I just think it's like what we can control is probably the best place for us to be in. And we've done all those different things and worked with a lot of amazing people in it. But yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to get, when you think about school specifically, right? Like everyone here has been to school, like your athletic director might be, a 60-year-old guy who doesn't know how to email, and your principal might be this person. Your high school basketball coach might have another job. And it's like getting 12 teams to align to even host a tournament, to me, feels impossible. I don't know how people do it every single week and every single day. And like we've done some of it too, but it's definitely especially high school sports, it's definitely a what's the right word? They have their connections, they're loyal to their connections, and they have a way that they've done it for years and years, and schools have their kind of loyalty to different things. So, and that's not like they like shun overtime away. It's more like we respect that. And I think we let that happen. So yeah, I think there's little pockets to pick, right? But overall, it's definitely challenging.
I know ESPN obviously has got involved, like you said, with like the LeBron games back in the day, and there's obviously been some Texas high school football that's got some. But I guess do you ever foresee, as rights get kind of bottled up and as these streamers get in the fold, like is high school next? Like is that somewhere where these like local leagues are cutting rights deals with Amazon for, I don't know. I just wonder if that's the one thing that hasn't been figured out. I just wonder if you think you're in the space, if that happens 10 years from now or not.
I think it's already starting to happen, right?
Okay.
Like, could it happen to overtime? Could it happen to Sierra Canyon? Could it happen to Mikey Williams? Yes. Do I think it'll be all like, or even a big majority? I don't, because it's such a small number of athletes that can drive eyeballs. And like, even like football is different because like, you have these huge schools, you have guys who are going to big colleges. Basketball, like,
it needs to be a Zion or LeBron to get any type of eyeballs. That makes sense.
Exactly. And even then, like, there's a lot of like, I knew Zion Williamson in high school was the most famous person in my life, but my dad still didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And you think about who's going to watch that on ESPN specifically, like, that's hard.
That's a great point. All right. I want to just end the program with some rapid fire questions for you. From an influencer standpoint, again, with all these changes from discoverability and followers, things like that, like what seems to be working the best right now for your guys' content?
For our influencers, I think, we really focus on TikTok. And I think on TikTok, it's how do you have something that you're known for? Like, what is your thing? And then you can get wider out of that. But for your first 100,000 followers, how are you known as like the guy who gives amazing basketball workout tips? Yeah. And then eventually, can you vlog yourself going to an NBA game and do it? Yes. But like, how do you become really well known? Like, oh, that's that guy. Like, that's the guy who does that. And I think for our influencers, building their brands and figuring out kind of what they can specialize in allows them, if they really grind on that, allows them to then broaden out and keep getting widen that funnel bigger and bigger every single time. So that's my main thing. It's less about like what like we can figure out what the content looks like. We're gonna have to change things, but what is your brand? And like, how are we gonna like really make people know what that is? And we'll figure out the rest through that.
Is high school the niche that you guys will just continue to focus on, or is there any like thoughts on, do you start to play a little bit more in the different pro space? Do you go head to head with the Bleacher House of Highlights, like with your guys' team and what you've been able to accomplish? Do you think it's smarter to stay like in your lane, or is there possibilities to go further?
I think we've been really lucky to always be outside of just high school after the first couple of years, because our model is really cool when it comes to covering athletes. Like Trae Young is like the first athlete I ever worked with in high school. And now
you follow his career all the way through.
Yeah, our fans still love Trae Young. And we get to recycle now Mikey Williams and Bronny and Jared McCain. But like, we still get the Zions and the LaMelos. Yeah. So I think we get a really good group. Like this year, like Jordan Poole is actually someone that we covered in high school. He's a sixth man on his high school basketball team, and now he's in the NBA finals. Like, our fans love him. And it's so random and it's so weird who our audience likes and loves. So I think we're in that conversation. Do I think our core is still the younger athlete? Yes, but I think we'll always bounce around to the more professional ranks as well.
I love that. Any brands or accounts or creators outside of Overtime, of course, that you enjoy following, getting inspiration out of?
I mean, tons. The first two that come to mind, one is maybe more PG-13, is the Side Talk NYC guys. They're the guys who like started the Bing Bong thing. They're definitely wild and out there, but I've never seen a group be able to capture community the way they do, where like people just like, some of this stuff's a little out there, but when at its core, everyone involved in that like loves each other. Like they're like really like feel like they're part of a community. So that's one. And then I guess I'm in a wild mood today. Jake Paul is another one. I think it's amazing to see someone who like has been able to kind of change with the time and like go to different things. Like, the boxing thing's cool, but he like understands TikTok and understands YouTube, and he started on Vine. And like,
I love when people parlay their original, success and just be able to like double down on it over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the two that come to mind where I'm just like, damn, they really get it. Like they just get it.
What's the one thing you think brands get wrong when trying to attract a younger audience? If you're like me, there's like 40 things floating in your head right now.
Yeah, there's unlimited amount of things. I mean, the biggest thing is just not being real, right? Like and look, that might just be who your brand is, and that maybe you need to hire someone else then. But like, not being able to like, it has to feel authentic. And I know everyone says that about brands and stuff, but like Overtime specifically, like we actually, I don't even like calling us a brand. I'd rather us be, or a company. Like I'd rather us feel like a person. Like, it's way easier to connect to that. And I think brands go too over the top trying to be a brand. And it's like, no, just be a human.
I hear that a lot. Gen Z likes esports. Like that's a not very, very broad brush there to try to like talk to an entire audience. Yeah. Any book, podcast, and newsletter that you consume often, enjoy, get value out of?
That's a good question. This podcast.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
To be honest, I'm not a big reader. I am someone who I just like knowing everything that's going on in less of the business world, more in like the sports and the culture world. So I have an hour every day where I'm on YouTube and I just click. Like I watch 2 minutes and I speed watch and I skip ahead and I look at headlines and everything that I watched came out in the last 24 hours. So I don't have actually like one person. It's more I'm just looking at headlines.
So you're a practitioner of your craft, yeah.
And that's how I'm figuring out like, oh wow, this video got 200,000 views in 24 hours. Why? Like this, they're talking about this topic. All the all the shows on ESPN and Fox Sports and all those different ones. What did they do today that like we can make the younger version of?
And I think this is like anything in life, right? There's no get rich quick scheme. Like you actually have to be in the community, trying new things, looking at what's working for other brands. I think sometimes when some of those legacy brands try to attract a younger audience, they're just making guesses instead of being practitioners inside those platforms, which fortunately and unfortunately, you have to be really deep into it almost on a weekly basis to kind of see what's real and what's not.
Totally.
From a tools, resource, app standpoint, you have a large team. You guys have to move quick. You want to like be first to market. Any tools internally, logistically, anything like that you just cannot live without that just makes Overtime run?
Yeah. Overtime is really lucky in the sense that we actually have our own internal development team. And we have developers who created a few internal apps for us that I can't imagine. I don't understand how. One, we should probably make them external at this point. They're so great. But one is like just a one-stop shop for all editing, adding logos, adding music. It's like a little bit of a mix of TikTok, Instagram, all these things, but like dummy it down, simplify it. And our developers at Overtime, shout to Seth, Dave, they're amazing. They built like this tool for me and for my team. And like, we're just able to do things way faster because of it.
Got it.
And we have a few different tools like that. I will say though, I try to use as few tools as possible as a whole. Like it's sports, it's social, we're 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
My group, and like, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. We text about everything nonstop. And we have our communication flow. We have group chats and like, we're just letting each other know like, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what's going on. This is what's going on. I don't want it to feel like a job almost. And I know that for me as a sports fan, like, yeah, when something sick happens, like me and my friends just text about it.
Yeah,
and,
it's
like,
a group chat on Instagram. Yeah, it's a DM.
Yeah, and we're just that on steroids as a company, honestly, especially on the social side.
I love that. And then my final question for you is, any advice you have for folks? I mean, you've had a pretty impressive career, obviously, and you've grown this brand in a big, big way to where it is today. I guess any advice for anyone trying to get into the industry or be successful in this industry?
One, thank you. I appreciate that. My advice is find people who are like, who you respect and are smarter than you and try to work with them. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do when I started my career. And what happened to me is I got an internship somewhere and I was like, damn, these 3 or 4 people who I'm working with are so smart, so locked in, so focused. I know I can learn from them. Yeah. And from there, it was like, I'll figure the rest out later. Like I'm going to learn something here. And especially when you're starting your career, like that's all it's about. Like, it's not about getting your dream job or getting money or it's like, how do I learn a little bit? Because that will help shape everything else you do. And I was really lucky in that regard. And I didn't go to school with social media. I didn't even have an Instagram account when I started at Overtime.
None of us did.
I worked with 3 really smart people and they were like, we need help with social. And I was like, I'll figure it out because I want to work with you. And I think that's my biggest thing. Find people you respect, love, and everything else will work out.
One of my favorite things a mentor told me right when I got out of college is different people are going to pull you up the ladder of success, right? And for you, it was those 3 folks you worked with, but it could be a partner, a neighbor. Just sometimes it's people that you not a million years would guess they were going to be a big reason to pull you up a step on that career ladder. But great stuff, man. Thank you so much for giving us peeling back the curtain and giving us some tricks and tips. I know you guys are constantly moving those levers probably on a minute by minute basis, but I appreciate all the knowledge here.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I love what you guys do as well. And anytime.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Tom. All right. Thank you so much to Tom, the head of social over at Overtime. Wow, KG. I was impressed with how much detail he was able to share with us. And like, he got super in depth with what's working, what's not. I love the micropod idea. I love how they approach original content. I love how they're actually like investing in their own league, so they own all IP and they don't have to worry about UGC or anything like that. Like, pretty fascinating what they're doing over there. And they've obviously been kind of a leader in the space for quite some time. Absolutely.
And I was super interested in what Tom does to kind of stay up to date on everything. Like watching these different YouTube videos, I wouldn't have expected that. I feel like normally you hear people watching different podcasts or reading a bunch of different books, and he is his routine down pat with the YouTube videos.
Well, and this is why, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. You really have to eat, live, and breathe and geek out over this industry, because you have to be a practitioner. You have to enjoy scrolling TikTok and saying, oh, that's an interesting trend I keep on seeing. The last 4 days, I've noticed this duet feature. I keep on seeing it. Maybe with our clients or maybe with my brand, we can try this duet feature. And that has to like excite you and geek you out and not be a chore, because it can easily be a work-life balance issue. It can easily be something that's really frustrating to have to spend time on. But you could tell like him and his team feels like a bunch of friends, college buddies, if you will, and gals that are in a DM just kind of like joking and getting excited about what's working and what's not. So I love that aspect about their culture, because I think it makes them better and makes them keep their thumb on the pulse.
Absolutely. And it makes me feel a little bit better about my own TikTok consumption.
Yes, listen, the algorithm is very addicting. What can we say? All right. So thanks so much to Tom Weingarten. He's the head of social over at Overtime, for all that knowledge he dropped. I hope you guys were writing some notes, because there's some things I'll even apply maybe to some of our content here on the pod and some different things, but really enjoyed his time. As always, I want to thank both the Katies, Katie Orchard, Katie Gillen, for all their support on the podcast and getting us up and running here. This has been yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all those things. My name is David Brickley. It's all been powered by STN Digital.